Hello and welcome to Belariossa Cooking with Injuries. I'm Belariossa and this channel is all about me sharing some tips and tricks that I have learnt from over 11 years of having some chronic injuries as well as mild injuries. So if that's something that interests you, hit the subscribe button, follow along and let's see where this journey takes us. In today's episode, I'm going to actually show you how I created my breakfast muffins, because I know sometimes you actually have to just adjust recipes, and if you're not sure how to actually adjust them, it can get a bit difficult. Maybe you've got somebody who has got a food allergy all of a sudden coming over and you're like, oh no, I've got to make sure I don't have any gluten in any of these ingredients. So to do this, I'm actually going to be making up a simple pancake recipe. So this is the pikelet recipe that I grew up on my entire life. It's quite a sweet pikelet. And then I'm going to be making also an oat pancake side by side, because this is the first transition that I did from the pikelet to the oats pancake. And then it was from there that I end up making it into the breakfast muffin. So let's actually get into starting to make these, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it as we go along. So we'll start off with the simple pancake. So for the simple pancake or pikelet, it might be called a pikelet because it's actually quite sweet. Don't know the difference in the names. For this, we've got 1 cup of flour. Now I always thought 1 cup of flour was about 130 grams, but in weighing it out today, I found out that it's actually about 140 grams. So 1 cup of flour, I'm gonna put it in here. Now the reason why I'm actually mixing it up into a 4 cup Pyrex thing is because it has a spout. So I actually find it a lot easier to mix up my pancakes into a bowl that has a spout, easier for pouring out. The next thing that we've got is 5/8 of a cup of milk, which is about 160 grams of milk. The reason why it's this weird number is because it used to be like a double batch or a triple batch, but because I wanted to make it only 1 egg, it was like, okay, out of all the ingredients, what can I make it the least? The eggs, instead of it being something like 2 or 3 eggs, I made it 1 egg and then just divided all the ingredients down. So next we've got 1 egg. So then the sweet part, we've got 82 grams of sugar. So that was 3/8 of a cup of sugar. I'm going to mix that all in. Now as I was mixing this in, I just remembered I forgot to put in the baking powder. So in this recipe, it calls for a cup of self-raising flour. So I got rid of all my different types of flours and changed to just having plain flour in the house, because I just found I wasn't getting through all the flours, and it's like, well, if I can just have one type of flour that I convert to being whatever I need, then that's great. To do that, it's baking powder. So self-raising flour is literally just plain flour with baking powder. So that's where I now keep, and because a lot of my other recipes use baking powder, that's where this comes from. So according to the box, because we go off what the box says, it's 2 teaspoons of baking powder per 1 cup of plain flour to turn it into self-raising. So let's put this in. Now the problem is, I was meant to sift this all through at the flour stage to turn it into self-raising flour. The fact I'm doing it at this stage, I have no idea if this is going to work. So let's find out. Because how often do we just forget to add ingredients? Don't know about you, but I do. So let's mix that in. The thing with baking powder is you really do need to mix it in well. Otherwise it just doesn't work. Well, it works, but you get these really interesting flavour sections and it's just not nice. Okay, let's have a look. That, it's not looking smooth yet, so we'll keep going. And we're going to put that aside to make our oatmeal batter. Now, the way that I started to convert this basic pikelet recipe into an oatmeal is I thought of every ingredient. We've got flour, we've got sugar, milk, egg, and a leavening ingredient. So let's start with the first ingredient, flour. Now, what can you replace flour with? You've got things like oatmeal, coconut flour, almond meal, just any other sort of binding ingredient, because the flour is to bring it all together and make it stay together. So in there, I was thinking about oats. I was like, okay, so oats, if you were to blend it up, you'd make oat flour. But I was like, okay, you have things like Anzac cookies that have oats baked into it. And then if you do things like the milk with the oats and leave it overnight, you actually soften it up. So maybe if I do overnight oats, I won't even need to blitz it up. So that's where I started with. We've got oats. Now, because I said I thought it was 130 grams of flour, 130 grams of oats. So approximately a cup, but it's about just over a cup of oats. And then from here, it's like, okay, I'm going to make them overnight oats, so I need to cover it. I know from this recipe, I'm working with about 160 mils of milk. So let's see. Now with this one, as I started to pour the milk over, I noticed that 160 mils of milk just wasn't enough to cover it. It needed about 210 grams of milk. So that's our first two ingredients. Milk, so there was still the milk in the flour, and oats, so the oats were to replace the flour. So I'm just going to squash the oats down so that they're all underneath the milk. Cover it up. So I've made this nice and airtight, and I'm going to put it in the fridge overnight. The reason why the first time I adjusted the recipe, I decided to go for overnight oats is because I was thinking that by putting it in the fridge overnight, the milk would soften the oats down because I wasn't actually blending the oats into being a flour. So it was like, okay, that might actually make it work a little bit better as a flour replacement. Now we'll put that in the fridge. And you may have noticed that I had sitting on the bench the whole time this bowl of overnight oats. Now this has actually been in the fridge for about a day and a half because I was intending to record this video yesterday, but this is cooking with injuries. So yesterday my knee decided, no, you're not standing on it today, you're gonna rest. So we've gone an extra day, and thankfully overnight oats can be in the fridge, apparently according to a Google research, for 2 days. So that works well. So we've got our overnight oats. Let's pull. Okay, let's have a look at these. Look, they're nice and soft. They are really soft. So that's looking great. And because I want more room to be able to mix these ingredients, we're going to put it into this bowl. Yet again, another tip, the first time I made this, I actually made it straight into my 4-cup bowl that I was pouring out of, because this container can go into the fridge. So any container that can go in the fridge, and it was large enough. That way I didn't have to decant and make extra dishes. So then I thought about the next ingredient that was in the pikelet, and that's egg. Thinking about eggs, eggs are full of protein, they're full of nutrition. So I decided to keep the eggs in the recipe. Now, for some people, if you're maybe allergic to egg, maybe this is where you'd consider how to replace the egg as well with something like maybe a flax egg, which is 1 tablespoon of chia seeds and 2 tablespoons of water. But because I'm not allergic to eggs and I like the taste of them, I'm gonna put an egg in there. So the next ingredient that we had in here was sugar. Sugar can obviously be replaced with things such as fruit, because fruits are quite sweet, or things like stevia, or another option is honey. This time I chose to go with honey. Now there isn't a 1-to-1 ratio swap between the sugar and honey, but because I added a little bit more milk, I decided that's where I was going to start. So there was 80 grams of sugar in here, so let's put 80 grams of honey in here. And let's mix all that up. And now that is nice and mixed up. So the only other thing that this recipe has that this one doesn't is a rising agent. So for this recipe, I've got a choice of a couple of different rising agents. I could use a baking powder as well, or I could actually use bicarb soda. So bicarb soda is an option when you're using something that is like a milk in there. So because this has a milk, I can use it. So bicarb soda doesn't have all the ingredients needed to actually make it activate and foam up, as baking powder does have all the ingredients in it. So that's where you have to look at the recipe and go, okay, do I have the other ingredient in this one as I have milk in it? Yes, I do. So for that reason, I chose to use bicarb soda. And to start off with, because bicarb soda is quite a strong flavour, I started with 1/2 teaspoon because I was experimenting. So bicarb soda also goes under the name of baking soda. It's just, if it has the word soda in it, then it's this product. If it's got the word powder in it, then it's the one that makes self-raising flour. So we're going to go for 1/2 teaspoon and mix that in very well. So baking soda, same problem as the baking powder. If you don't mix it in quite well, you'll get lumps and then you'll have this weird texture throughout your recipe. So that's why it's mix it in very well. I'm going to bring this one over so that you can see all the bubbles that are formed. See all those beautiful bubbles that are formed on the top? That is the bicarb soda working. So let's go over to the stove top and cook these off. Okay, we're going to preheat the pans. And cook our pancakes. Okay, I'm going to put the oatmeal one in here and spread it out. And put the pancakes, traditional pancake, in here. The part that I find the hardest when making pancakes is being patient to wait till they're ready to flip. And here we have our stack of traditional pikelets and our stack of the oatmeal. The pikelets are a lot higher because I made them smaller. That's all. So let's try a little bit of traditional pikelet. So good. That is what I remember my childhood tasting like. Now a little bit of the oatmeal. So when I bite into it, it's like, that's not bad. If I'm wanting to have a healthy pancake, it's quite all right. But that's how I created the recipes. I had my starting point and then I adjusted it. Then I taste it. And go, it's not bad, but maybe it would taste better if I was to add a little bit of mixed spice to it and go from there. And then the way that this turned from being a pancake into a muffin is I thought about it. Pancake. Pancake. So pancake means that it is a cake that you make in the pan. What if I take the same recipe and put it into a muffin tin? What would happen? Then taste it and go, what do I think of those flavours? What might need to change? What do I think would taste better to add to it? And just experiment. And that is how I created my breakfast muffin series.